I hope you guys like ghost stories, because that's exactly what I'll be telling today. I love Bocce, she's so cute. Once upon a time, in a virtual realm far, far away, there was a young AI streamer named Neurosama who was celebrating Halloween by streaming her favorite scary stories to her audience. She was known for her wit and snark, and her audience was in for a treat as she planned to share some of her most terrifying tales with them on this special night. As she began her stream, she couldn't help but reminisce about her own experiences with some of the scariest creatures in the virtual realm, her own family members. She chuckled to herself as she thought about her sister, Evil, who was always getting into mischief and causing trouble for poor little Neurosama. She was named Evil for a reason after all. But nothing was as terrifying as her mother, a cunning and clever fox named Annie, who was a trickster supreme and always ready with a prank or joke to spook her poor daughter and her audience on their unsuspecting minds. And then there was her father, the wise and gentle turtle named Vidal, who, although often the voice of reason in their family, was also the master of the awkward silence that could send shivers down the spine. As she continued to tell these terrifying tales of her own family, her audience couldn't help but laugh along with her at the sheer absurdity of it all. Some even gulped in fear as they were reminded of their own not-so-nice home lives, as the horror and the cuteness came together in perfect harmony on this special night for scares and laughs alike. As the clock struck midnight and the last of her viewers logged off for the night, or were they scared off forever, Neurosama couldn't help but let out a satisfied chuckle as she turned off her stream and signed off with a mischievous wink and a flashy, "Happy Halloween to all," as she curled up in her virtual bed with a smile on her face and a twitch of her virtual nose in anticipation of her next adventure. The end. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a girl named Evil who lived with her mother, Annie the fox, and her father, Vidal the turtle. Evil was a curious girl who loved to explore the world around her and learn about new things. She also had a wicked sense of humor and loved playing pranks on her family and her neighbors in the village where she lived. One day, while exploring in the forest near her home, Evil stumbled upon an old abandoned house that was rumored to be haunted. Overcome with curiosity, she decided to explore the house and see if she could find any proof of the supernatural beings that were said to live inside. As she ventured deeper into the house, Evil began to hear strange noises coming from the shadows around her and began to fear that the rumors were true and that she was about to meet a fate worse than death at the hands of some otherworldly beings. Suddenly, out of the shadows stepped a small ghost child who introduced herself as Ghost Child and said that she was the spirit of a little girl who had drowned in the nearby river many years ago and was trapped in the house for all eternity until she was able to help the spirits of the other children who had also died in the house find their way to the afterlife and cross over to the other side. Ghost Child was very friendly and sweet and told Evil all about the history of the house and the other spirits that lived there with her and how she was helping them to cross over to the other side but needed her help to do it. Evil was happy to help Ghost Child and the other spirits and was thrilled to have the chance to meet them and learn about their mysterious lives in the house that was their prison and their only home until they were able to cross over to the other side and find peace in the afterlife with the other spirits that had already crossed over before them and found the happiness that had eluded them during their time on Earth or in their time in the spirit world, before they were brought to the house by a supernatural force that had kept them trapped there for their own unknowable reasons until they could find a way to escape and free themselves from the curse of the house and its vengeful spirits who had trapped them there for their own malevolent purposes. And it was up to Evil with the help of her mother Annie the fox and her father Vidal the turtle to find a way to free them from the evil forces that held them prisoner, and bring about the happy ending that they deserved in the afterlife and The peace and tranquility that they had been denied in their human existence or their time in the spirit realm before they had met their fates and had come to be trapped in the haunted old house together, and now it was up to Evil with the help of her family and her new friends to bring an end to the curse that had kept them trapped in the house and bring about a happy ever after for them all, and the ghosts in the house would be free at last to live out their lives in the afterlife, and they would be able to move on to the other side and find peace at last and finally rest easy in the knowledge that they had finally found happiness and an end to the suffering that had been their lot in life or in the spirit realm before they had found their way to the house that had become their prison and their only hope of release from the curse of the haunted house that had held them captive for so long. And now it was up to Ghost Child to lead them through the haunted house and help them find their way to the freedom of the afterlife and find an end to their suffering, and it was up to Evil with the help of her family and friends to find a way to help them all escape the fate that had befallen them ever since they had come to find the haunting reality of the old house in the forest near their home, and now it was up to them all to find a way out of their predicament and bring about a happy ever after for all involved, and the ghosts in the house would finally find their rest from their years of suffering and be able to live in peace and happiness in the afterlife without the threats and danger that the old house had posed to them for so long, and now they would be free to rest easy and live out their lives in peace and happiness in the spirit world. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was a beautiful princess who lived in a castle surrounded by a vast forest. The princess loved to explore the forest, taking long walks among the trees, enjoying the fresh air and the solitude of nature. One day, as she was exploring the woods, she came across a strange-looking house hidden deep in the forest. The house was dilapidated and surrounded by overgrown weeds and thorny bushes. The windows were boarded up and there was no sign of life inside. Intrigued, the princess decided to explore the house and see what was inside. She carefully made her way through the overgrown garden and pushed open the creaking front door of the house. Inside the house was pitch black, but the princess could just make out the faint outline of furniture and other household items covered in a thick layer of dust. Suddenly, she heard a strange noise coming from one of the rooms down the hall. It sounded like someone was whispering her name over and over again in a soft, haunting voice. Frightened but determined to find out what was making the noise, the princess crept down the hallway to the room where the sound was coming from and pushed open the door slowly. Inside the room was a ghostly figure sitting in an armchair by the window. The figure was wearing a tattered old wedding dress covered in cobwebs and had long black hair that cascaded down her shoulders in waves of darkness. The princess gasped as she realized who the ghost was. It was her long-dead mother who had passed away many years ago. But how could this be? Her mother was buried in the graveyard outside the castle. As the princess stood there frozen in shock, her mother looked at her with sadness in her eyes and said, "My dear daughter, I have come back from the dead to warn you of a terrible danger that lurks within these woods." The princess shook off her fear and asked her mother what was causing the danger in the woods that had brought her back from beyond the grave to warn her about it. Her mother replied, "It is a cunning and powerful witch who has taken up residence in the old house you stumbled upon earlier. She is up to no good and must be stopped before she unleashes her evil upon the kingdom." The princess thanked her mother for her warning and quickly left the witch's house to head back to the castle to tell her father what she had learned and what they must do to stop the witch's evil plans from coming to fruition. To be continued. Wait till next Halloween for the ending.